and welcome back. This week's video is another episode from my series The Environment, and I am talking to you about our planet, our wonderful planet that we live on, and I'll be talking to you about the plastic on it, climate change, CO2 emissions, and a little bit on how the UK can reduce its carbon footprint. With the world's population growing, unfortunately plastic grows with it. We are currently in the middle of a global waste crisis, and it is said to be that by 2050 the amount of waste is meant to grow by 70%. This equals to around 3.4 million tonnes of trash in our landfill or oceans. In 1 year, 300 million tonnes of plastic is created. 50% of this is single-use plastics, and 8 million of this, over 8 million of this, will end up in the ocean. For single-use plastics, even though they are only used once and then thrown away, so to us it's just the one use, but on the land, when they go into landfill, they stay on this planet for hundreds of years. It's crazy on how long single-use plastics stay on this earth. With all this plastic that is going into the ocean, it is said that 1 in 3 sea creatures will get stuck in some form of plastic somewhere in the world. But what also is worrying is that 90% of sea birds have plastic in their stomachs. That is insane. How have we let that happen, that the poor sea creatures have plastic in their stomachs? I know I wouldn't like having plastic in my stomach, so why should we let it happen to them? A good website to look at that provides a bit of information on ways that help the environment, and it's 5 ways that they've pointed out in this ebook, and that is The Last Object. The Last Object is a company that sells reusable cotton swabs and plastic-free tissues. They have an ebook, like I said, that talks about the environment, and even if you just look at this ebook, it'll show that you have some form of interest in it. I downloaded it, I found it super helpful, and I hope you find it helpful as well. Climate change is an ever-increasing problem that we have today. In 2015, there was an agreement that was created called the Paris Agreement, which was put in place to help keep information on how to reduce climate change a topic, and how to stop the world's temperatures from increasing 2 degrees. 2 degrees may not seem like a big difference, but in the whole planet, 2 degrees is incredibly large. It can have a huge effect on sea levels and the ice just by increasing by this. The agreement is also created to help the ability to tackle climate change as well. There are so many countries that have agreed to this agreement, and it is so good to know that so many countries do want to improve the climate change problem, but there are also countries that don't agree with the agreement or have either not joined from the start, and I'm aware of one country that has now come out of the agreement whilst being in lockdown. Climate change can be seen in many different forms. It could be shift in weather patterns, which would be at risk with food production. It can be rising sea levels and anything like this really. So something that we might not think going, oh, we've got really nice weather, or we've had a lot of storms recently. This is because of the climate change. If you think something is out of the normal, like in the weather or something like this, then there is a high possibility that the climate change is getting worse because more not normal things are happening. From being recognised that climate change is an ever-growing problem, the United Nations has created something called the 5th Assessment Report, which focus primarily on the rising sea levels and how it has risen in the past years. I know it dates back to 1880, some of this information in the reports does, and it just shows them trying to understand where the key places of where sea levels are rising and potential ways on how we can reduce this from happening and eventually stop it. CO2 is an element that we need in day-to-day life, but everything around us needs it as well. Plants and other animals need it too. CO2 is not really harmful, it just is something that we need to live basically. Plants need it to live, trees definitely need it to live, and trees obviously make us live, so we need them so much. But with the more CO2 that we're giving, and by the cars and stuff like this producing more CO2 that the earth is normally used to, by us cutting down trees, we cannot turn the CO2 into the oxygen that we need for lungs to be able to breathe. So this is where CO2 becomes a problem and why we need to reduce it. With it being in the air, it is warming it as well. So this is towards the climate change as well. So this is why it's so important for us to try and reduce our CO2 emissions. And I'm so pleased that some countries are really trying to aim to reduce the emissions, but it's so sad to see that other countries are not doing anything at all. The top countries which are trying to lower their CO2 emissions more thoroughly and really trying to do this are Morocco, Gambia and India. Morocco and Gambia are trying to reduce and generate 42% of their electrical productions through renewable energy by 2020. So by this year, this is when they're trying to reach 42%. Obviously, with us being in the pandemic, I'm not sure if they've been able to reach this as yet, but hopefully they are at least somewhere near the track. Well, and from last year in Morocco, they were at 35%, so I'm pretty sure they're in a very good headway of reaching their target for this year. And for both the countries, they are trying to reach 52% by 2030. I think these are two really good aims that they are aiming for, and it looks like they're on the right track as well. Morocco has got the largest solar panel fields in the world, and it equals to about 3,500 football fields put together. That is how big their solar panel fields are. In Gambia, they have the largest project to reduce 10,000 acres of forest and restore everything in terms of the forests and stuff like this. I think both these countries are doing an amazing job to try and reduce their CO2 emissions and bring life back into our planet. India has become the global leader in reducing emissions and using renewable energy. They are now focusing more on using renewable energy than fossil fuels, which is incredible. They are aiming to get to 40% by 2030, so obviously not as quickly as Morocco and Gambia, but obviously India is such a big country and it does need to do this by using all of it, so it can understand that their target is slightly lower, but at least it shows that they are trying to do something and that they want to help this planet and make it better for us all. As I said before about the Paris Agreement, I thought I'd mention some of the countries that may not be part of this agreement and may have come out of the agreement, but also these are the same countries that aren't doing anything at all or doing as minimal as possible to help reduce their CO2 emissions, and that is Russia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Ukraine and the United States. So these countries don't really have any thought about trying to reduce it or trying to help the environment whatsoever, which I think is a real shame because these are obviously all around the world, and just by the spots of positivity coming out of the world and using renewable energy and not fossil fuels can make a huge impact just by the small countries doing it as well. For the UK in CO2 emissions, we have reduced by 44% during 1990 and 2018, even when our economy was growing to 75%. In June 2019, our government realised how much of a crisis we are in with our environment and the global change. So they put in an agreement and legislation so that we have a zero emissions by 2050. I think this is a great thing that they have done. It has been said that we are currently slightly behind where we want to be, but this could be a number of reasons, and especially now that we are in lockdown. But at least we are doing something. That is all everything is about. It's doing something to try and help, doing the small changes here and there. Every little helps with saving the environment, and that's what it is about, like my sustainable journey, is that I want to do the small things that will help make a big impact later in life as well. The way the UK can reduce its carbon footprint is by people flying less, going vegan or flexitarian. Flexitarian is someone that has a more achievable food pattern. So not going completely vegan and struggling, like going vegetarian some days, vegan some days, just choosing the better option that they can at that point. So not going, I am now vegetarian, and then really struggling to eat something and having food from different countries, as this will then mean that the transportation will then increase for the products that they're eating, if that makes sense. Going, optimizing the home, so having solar panels on your roof, buying second-hand, eating local products and eating seasonally so that we don't have to buy as much products from different countries to then have all year round. Finally, reusing and reducing. By doing these small or big changes will really have a big effect on our carbon footprint. Some of them can be done more easily than others, and that is totally understandable. Like some people need to travel a lot for work, or some people can't really buy secondhand and stuff like that. So it's just doing the changes that you as a person can do, and I hope this list has given you some ideas on it as well. But obviously it's us as a country as a whole that ideally need to be doing this, but it's just starting off as one person at a time, one person telling someone, oh, I've started to do this, and they go, oh, I could do that. And it's just stuff like that, really. It's like just starting the ball going, and then eventually a lot more people start doing it because they're realising other people are doing it as well.
Climate Action Tracker is a website that I found that provides loads of information on what different countries are doing and how sufficient or insufficient they are. As I'm showing you now on the map, Canada is insufficient, EU is insufficient, so we can see that orange is an insufficient colour. Russia is a critical insufficient, and Morocco is the light green, which is Paris Agreement compatibility. So it just shows you what the colours mean and showing you which countries are those colours. You can add or take out certain colours so you can really focus on which countries are in which category. Ideally, we would like to see light green and dark green, or maybe yellow, but really orange, red and black are ones that we don't really want to see. So I've now clicked on the EU, which was insufficient, and now I'm looking at the country's profile. So this is where it will give loads of information on the country that you've picked. It will explain what insufficient means, or whichever area on the spectrum they are. And then as we scroll down, you see a summary of past years, now and present, and then future targets. So in pledges and targets, you see a summary table on the information that is going to be below. But then there's also a huge section on the Paris Agreement targets, which is incredible to read up on to see what the EU are planning on doing as their part for the assessment, and see the fair shares on what the EU are doing as well. Going back to the summary, it will show information and the assessment of what the EU is doing for the Paris Agreement again, and just more of an overview of what is in the other tabs for the fair share and stuff like that. So it really wants to provide you with as much information on what the country you've clicked on is doing for either the Paris Agreement or what the country is doing itself to help prevent the climate change.
If you would like to see as an individual or a business on how you can reduce your carbon footprint to help the UK reduce its carbon footprint, I will put in my description 2 links. One to WWF, I did mention this in one of my first videos I ever put out, and also carbonfootprint.com. They have loads of information on carbon footprint and how to reduce it, and they also have a calculator on how it will show you how you personally can reduce it as well. That's all my information for this video. I hope it's been really informative to you and I've given you some more information that you didn't already know. But if there's anything I missed, please put it in the comments and I will happily reply to you and give you the information that you needed. But that's me for this week. I do hope you enjoy the rest of this series that I put out. But I'll see you next time. Bye.